Woodworking to students. I usually give a giant speech about all the different tools you can use. We don't use them all in the classroom. I just like to show them off. But I really don't want to drag them all into the school for one day of show and tell. I figured this is something you could watch at home as homework anyway. So we're gonna sit down and watch my wonderful video on many of the tools you can use. I will tell you one thing, I do not have a table saw. Back in my day, table saws were gigantic. Now they're much more transportable. I mean, they still have giant ones, but you could get a smaller one that we could put in our classroom. We just haven't. We use all transportable tools in our classroom as of right now. Someday, maybe we'll get a table saw. Another thing that I do not have in my shed is a planer, an electric planer. Electric planers are really good. What they do is, well, so first of all, a table saw, what it does is it cuts all sorts of things. I mean, you can take big things, little things, cut them at angles, cut them however you want, cut long pieces, okay? So we have a miter saw, and I'll talk about that. But this is not, this like can cut a giant like 2x4 in half if you wanted to, okay? You cannot do that with a miter saw, and you definitely don't want to do it with a circular saw. And I can talk about that in class a little bit. The other thing is the planer. What an electric planer does is, let's say you buy a non-planed piece of wood at a regular wood place, okay? So the wood there is going to be cheaper because it's not planed. You put it in, what it does is it completely squares off the entire thing so that it's nice and level. Now, when you go to Home Depot, not only does it cost more, but it's already been pre-planed, and yet it's usually warped. So if you had a planer, this would take care of that, because then you could just pre-plane everything yourself. If I could get anything, I don't know, I think I might want a planer, okay? But a table saw too. A table saw and a planer are the two things I would definitely want for my wood shop. Okay, so here's my shed. I'm gonna go through a few things we don't have in class, okay? First of all, this is a jigsaw. We do have a jigsaw in our class. This is what it looks like. I'm just not gonna bring mine in. Basically a jigsaw, you can put it on stuff and cut. Now you can also cut it in shapes and everything, and I can show you in class. I'm not gonna bring it, but it also is good at cutting all sorts of different kinds of things. The hard thing is that it's not steady, okay? So it's really great. I've had some students make some great projects with a jigsaw. The best thing is that it does cut wiggly lines. However, it is also, like I said, it's wiggly itself. This over here is a circular saw. Now, I might sometimes bring this into class, but right now I'm not bringing it to class unless we need it. A circular saw was my very first saw. Okay, they're so great. Basically, whatever you need to cut, whatever you need to cut, you can put it down and cut, okay? It also makes angles, okay? However, certain angles it doesn't make, okay? So it's the perfect thing. This is just a normal 2x4. Circular saw is a great thing to cut a 2x4 with, because you just cut it across. Now, this part right here can be cut at an angle. So like, let's say it's cut down like this. That's why the circular saw can cut at an angle. So it can cut like that, okay? Or it can cut like that. So it's only a few inches across. We can't cut giant things with a circular saw because the circle of the circular saw, or disc, it's only so big, okay? So we can't cut anything bigger than that circle. We could do one side and the other side, but if you do the one side and the other side, if there's stuff in the middle, you can't do that with a circular saw. I'm gonna bring this into class. I actually bought it specifically for the class. This is called a scroll saw, and I will go over that in class. It is like a jigsaw, but upside down. Basically, a jigsaw is just like the bandsaw, except upside down. So if you take the bandsaw and turn it upside down, but stabilize it, then you would just run the wood over it. So a scroll saw, so that's what a jigsaw is. A scroll saw is very similar to a bandsaw. I don't think that's what I said, but that's what I'm saying now. Scroll saw is very similar to a bandsaw. This is actually what we make our puzzles with, or you can make other cutouts and stuff. These are two of my most favorite things, and I will definitely have them in class with me. This, of course, is a driver. Okay, what a driver is it's something that drives screws. Oh, actually, maybe it's a drill. I don't know. There's a driver and a drill. Basically, they look the same. One drives screws, one drives drills. This does both, basically, and I'll show you this in class. So this one has a screwdriver head on it. I can screw it, etc. But you can also put drills on it, okay? And this is my favorite thing I also bought for this class, even though it's mine. It's called a Dremel. And I'm gonna have to show it to you in class. It's too awesome. So just know that that's a Dremel. A Dremel is also called, okay, so a Dremel is called a rotating tool. Like I said, I'll show you in class, but basically if I ask you on a test, what is a Dremel? It's a rotating tool. It can carve, it can get into tiny little crevices. It can, it just goes like this, but like really little. Like imagine a screwdriver, except instead of screws or drills, it's just a tiny little thing, and you can carve things. I mean, you can etch glass. You could etch a rock. You could go into a crevice and do like sandpaper, you know. So rotary tools are really great. Dremel, I love my rotary tool. I bought a non-Dremel rotary tool that we'll also use in the class, so it's not name brand, but it's still really good. This is called a few different things. We can call it a hacksaw, we can call it a reciprocating saw, or some people call it a Sawzall. Although Sawzall is more like the brand, okay? So what it can do is it basically is like a turkey knife. So you're like, and you can cut whatever you want, just like you're carving a turkey, okay? These are the pieces to my Dremel bits. So basically, I have hundreds of bits and they all do different things, and I love them. These are all toolboxes. This is what a toolbox looks like. Let's see. This is a measuring tape. This is called a wrench. These are bolts and nuts. I don't know if you can see that very well. I'm just gonna go through all my stuff. Hopefully everyone knows what this is called. It's a hammer. If you watched Bob the Builder as a child, you should know what this one is. This one is not a hammer. It's a poundy thing, crap. Alexa says it's a mallet. Okay, so there's a mallet, and so that's good for pounding bigger things, okay? So if you look, do you see his head is bigger than this guy? So if I were going to pound in a piece of wood in my backyard or a fence post or something like that, I would use the mallet. We have used it in class. It does happen. Obviously, there's a lot of tools we aren't going to use. This is a pencil. I do want everyone to have a pencil. It doesn't have to be this kind of pencil. This one's cool, though, because it doesn't roll. Okay, that's why we use it in woodshop. It's a non-rolling pencil. Like I said, stuff like this, I'm not gonna explain it to you because they're not really woodshop related. I have lots and lots of junk. Ugh. Okay, I don't use this at all, but it's good construction. This is a stud finder. It helps you to find the, like, do you see behind every wall, there's these pieces of board, these 2x4s, then in another 18 inches or so, there's gonna be another one and another one. They're called studs, okay? And also the reciprocating saw down here that we talked about, you're probably never gonna use it except for when you're doing construction. Scissors are always good to have around. But remember, if you have scissors for your wood shop, they need to be just for your wood shop. Please don't use them for cooking or sewing or cutting papers. Okay. This is called an auger bit. It's a drill bit, but it's huge. So we actually call huge drill bits auger bits, okay? They do come in handy. Woo! They do come in handy sometimes. So I have several auger bits in this drawer, lots of auger bits. Those are masonry drill bits. What they do is they can drill into like brick, okay? Those are that's a socket wrench set, okay? So this is a socket wrench, and I would put little bits on it so I can do the socket wrench. This is also a different kind of socket wrench, and same thing, I would switch this out, and I can do big ones, little ones. This is great for nuts. This is great for a lot of things. I forgot to tell you what this is. This is an Allen wrench set, okay? So I love Allen wrenches. I use them for everything. It really has to do with what kind of nuts and different things you have. If you need an Allen wrench, this is what you're gonna need. Usually they're shaped like an L, okay? This is an Allen wrench set. A lot of times people will call it an Allen key because it's something that goes into a hole, just like a key would go into a hole, okay? So this is an Allen key set or an Allen wrench set, and I can go over that more in class. This is another kind of, oh, actually, no, I didn't tell you about these. These are pliers. These ones are needle nose pliers because they have such a fine tip at the top. There are other pliers we'll go over. This one is a Phillips head screwdriver, okay? I can't really show you, but basically it's a star on top, so it's Phillips head. Remember, if it has a flat head on top, it's called a flathead screwdriver. Also, one thing that a lot of my beginner students don't know is what the difference is between a screw and a nail. So a screw has these grooves on it, okay? Whereas a nail is flat. So a nail comes out much easier than a screw. So what I usually tell people is if you nail it, you better nail it. But if you screw it, you can screw up. Okay, and here's another box of stuff. And I don't know if you can see it in my dark space, so I'll have to take stuff out. This is a screwdriver without the head. So you actually put in different bits. Maybe it's a flathead, maybe it's a Phillips head, but you know what? There's actually like 40,000 more bits you could use. So I hate that. This class actually does have different bits too. I have lots of those actually. So this one, hello, just removes and puts back. So same thing. Now, if you look, I don't know how well you can tell. We'll talk about that later. Ooh, this is a perfect one. We'll talk about this. Okay, this is a different kind of drill bit. Okay, this drill bit it makes holes. I mean, well, all drill bits make holes, but this makes bigger holes because it makes a hole this big, okay, which is super cool. But if you notice anything else about this, it is rusty. That is because I didn't take care of it. Ironically, I took all of this stuff out to show my woodworking class a few years ago, and it like rained or I sprinkled or something, and it got all gross and rusty, and I ruined it. So remember to never leave any of your tools out where it gets wet. Dry it immediately. You also have to condition your tools every once in a while by rubbing them in oil, okay? Yeah, this is gross. Okay. Few more. This one is another drill bit that's gonna make like a bigger hole. This is another kind of wrench. Okay, so this is a wrench, and this also is a wrench, but it works with nuts. Same way with this one. This is kind of like a socket wrench. It kind of twirls a little in here. And of course, this is another Phillips head screwdriver. This is actually called a level. We will use a level. A level has this bubble in the middle to make sure it is level, and if you can see, it does look level right now. Level hung up right here. I have earmuffs. I have a saw. This is called a tri-square because there's, actually a good tri-square has 3 sides, but we're gonna call this one a tri-square too. The 3-sided ones are way better though. This one is a hacksaw. It's really, really, really good. It's good with metal or like things that you need a fine grip on. This is a crowbar. This is another saw. I don't have a wood saw here because it's gross and old, and so I threw it away, but you guys have a great wood saw. G-cramps and we also call them clamps because it looks like a G, but we use them a lot. You hook them right here and we clamp them. We actually use the bigger ones, but we can use those. Screwdriver bits look like, or screwdriver heads. I have 100,000 of them, and you will eventually too. Here are screws. I get a box of screws. Remember, screws have the little ridges on it, okay? More screws. Again, I usually use screws because they're so much better than nails. I have a whole bunch of different stuff. These little tiny round things are called washers. These things that get on here, these are called nuts. This whole thing is called a bolt. So you usually use nuts, bolts, and washers all together. Here is another kind of wrench. And more wrenches. These are all wrenches in here. Lots of wrenches. So you see that they're totally different. Like this wrench is different from this wrench, but they're still both wrenches. These are zip ties. If you don't know what a zip tie is, they're totally awesome. This is the flathead, since I haven't shown you yet, but I have lots of screwdrivers over here. And again, some of them, oh, this is a chisel actually. So you won't be using a ton of chisel. Chisels are really good if you're gonna like chisel out this part of the door or something. Otherwise, when we do our wood carving, we don't really use chisels. And then these are replacement blades for, let's say, the bandsaw. I highly recommend you to get your own. This is what I was telling you guys last week about like a little apron you can wear. Highly recommend you doing that. I also have a tool bench. We used to use this all the time, but you guys have tool benches there too. But I love my tool bench. And then of course, always having extra wood around. This is another kind of clamp. We don't really use these in class, but we could. This is actually the kind of clamp we're gonna use in class, okay? I love them. It's a bar clamp. These are two different kind of sanding blocks that we probably won't use in class, although we totally should. Maybe I'll let you guys use this. I had a kid last year who wanted to make this from scratch because it should be so easy to make. Different kinds. We might be able to do the sanding block. I have a boatload of other stuff, which I'm sure you can imagine if you know me at all. I have like a ton of just random stuff. I will say this, and that is that I have a lot of antique-y tools, not necessarily antique, but old-fashioned, okay? And I can't find them, so I must have just left them at the school because I actually have you guys use them for the very first project. Like I said, I can't find them, so fingers crossed that I left them at the school. But yeah, so like I said, there's a ton of stuff in here that isn't woodworking, but it's still really good for, let's say, fixing your house or fixing your toilet or fixing your swamp cooler, doing electrical, doing plumbing, putting up doors, making stuff. Obviously, I'm going to be less of a fixer and more of a making crazy stuff person. Painting stuff, yard tools. I mean, so I got a ton of everything in here. But it's just important to get those and to understand what those are. So I want you guys to understand what your different tools are, what they do. I want you to understand every single tool we've gone through in this video. If you don't remember, I want you to review it because I'm going to ask you in class. Then I also will talk in class about certain tools. For those of you who are not here today, that is too bad. The ones that are most important are the scroll saw. We have a miter saw, so you guys can Google those because I'll talk about those in class. So a scroll saw, a miter saw, the Dremel, a hand saw, screwdriver, a handheld drill that goes like this, a hammer, the difference between screws and nails, orbital sander, wood burning tools, what a dowel is, what a 2x4 is. That's pretty much it, but I'll probably write those all down. So if you're not in class, please Google all those things I said. I will try to write them down, but if I don't, you still need to know how they are because you're getting graded on this test I'm going to give you. For those in class, well, you should probably do it too, but I'll have at least explained it to you. So enjoy studying for your test next Wednesday. It's a test on tools. Thank you. Feel free to look up any other tools you want to know about.